So now that we have a postcode or a location, what we're going to do is we're going to use the Google API in the geocoding. Let me just scroll down to this. We're going to use this. Let's just copy that in our program to return this kind of information, because we need the latitude and longitude, and more than just the latitude and longitude, we need this rectangle that it's supplying us with. So let's go back to our Python. Let's play around with that. So I'm going to create a new function called get def get latitude and longitude. Now I'm using lon, L-O-N, for longitude. You might notice that in Google they tend to use LNG for the same thing. It doesn't really matter, I'm just used to LON for longitude. And what we're going to do is we are going to send in the address that we got earlier. So that's the function call, and what's going to be returned is geometry. We're going to return a rectangle. I'm going to call this geometry. We're going to use this geometry here. So if I just return geometry, and we'll deal with what it contains later, but for now we're just going to return the geometry, which is going to contain information about latitude and longitude in a dictionary. So first thing we need to do is, because we're returning it, let's make sure it's empty to begin with. Geometry is an empty dictionary, and now we're going to make up that call. So we are going to set the URL. So the Google URL that we required is, remember we just copied it, so I'm going to paste it. https maps.googleapis maps API geocode JSON, and the address, and it's waiting for an address, and we are going to put that address in from our postcode. We can't do it directly, so we're going to have to be careful in what we do. So we're going to set up the URL, the geocode URL, to be this address. We're going to make a call, but before we make that call we need to actually use a library that comes with Python, and it's called url-lib. So I'm going to import that here. I'm going to import url-lib, which contains a lot of resources, functions which talk to the internet, so it saves us the problems of having to write the code which does that. They're already supplied for you in a library. I don't want to keep using the word url-lib all the time, so I'm going to shorten it. I'm going to give it an alias, a different name. I'm just going to call it u. So I'm importing the url-lib, and every time I use it I'm going to use u. This is going to be made clear around about now, because I'm going to use the URL open, which makes a request to a website for the information that's contained in that website. So I'm going to use the url-libs function URL open, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Google URL, and if you remember we've got that all the way up to here. This is the Google URL, and we need to put the address on the end. Well, we've passed in the address, so we are going to use that. We could have one or two issues here. It may be better to wrap this up in a try except block. I'm not going to do it now. We'll have a look at that later. For example, we might not have a network. So up here you can see I've got my network on. If my Wi-Fi had failed, or I was on a different network and couldn't get internet access, then this is going to crash my program. So we will look at that a little later and try to resolve that issue. But we're going to call that URL open, and we are going to read the information that comes back on a page. So what happens is we make the call. Let's go to here. We make this call, and it sends back a whole web page full of information which looks like this. So we just need to read what is on that web page. So if I just put .read, that's the way we do it. If I was to print geocode URL out now, it would just print out the information that you can see behind this window. So we've got the URL. However, it's not in the best format for us to use. It's in JSON coding, and we need to turn that into something that Python can use. And there is a little library as well called JSON. So if I just do this, import JSON, JSON. Actually, I'm not going to shrink that name down. I could have called it as J. I'm not going. I'm going to keep it as it is, so you can see the use without. So I'm going to say that the result from the information, all of this information, the result is going to be passed my JSON loads in the geocode URL. So we are going to load that into the JSON parser, and that's going to give us a dictionary of items that we can use. So it's going to take all of this text, which is just text on a web page, and it's going to convert it into a dictionary for us to use, and that's going to be stored in result. So we need the geocode URL, which is what we've passed in there, geocode URL. That is the text that we are going to pass. Now we have to do something with it. So now we have a dictionary, and what I want to do is populate this dictionary, geometry, with the bits of this that I require. And the bits that I require are going to be sort of the latitude. I want that. I want the longitude, just in case. But more importantly, I want these values in the viewport. I want the northeast value, and I want its latitude, and I want the viewport northeast longitude, and I want the viewport southwest latitude, and I want the viewport southwest longitude. So I've got one or two bits and pieces to type in. This is probably where I'm going to make a typing mistakes. Let's see if copy and paste will help us out. So the way I'm going to do it. So my dictionary, which is the geometry dictionary, I'm going to have a latitude item. Now every item in a dictionary has to be unique, so I can only have one lat, and that is going to be equal to this result. I'm now going to go through this. Let's see if I can do it. I'm now going to go through this. I'm going to pass this so I can just get that one single piece of information. So that is in result, because that's the value I returned here. So that is in result. And inside there, the first thing I need is this, the results. So I'm going to keep passing through this one. So the first thing I need is the results. When I'm in results, what I need to do to find the latitude and the longitude, I need to go to the geometry section. So results is the top level, and the next level down, now this is quite difficult to see here, so I'll take you to another website which will help you see this information a little better. But that is top level. This is the first level down. This is the second level down, and I'm looking for a first level item called geometry. So I've got a first level item called formatted address, and now I've got a first level item called geometry. So that's where I am. So I want to have, that's my top level, Now, the next level down, I want to pick up the geometry item. But before I do that, there are a lot of them. There's not just one. So if we take a look here, I've got address components here as a first level, and a bit later on, you can't see it on this one, but you may have another one afterwards. And what is happening is that I've actually got an array of values. That square box there means that I have an array of values. So I've got an array of address components. In other words, I've got 1, 2, 3 of them. And in results, I've got an array of items. I've got address components, I've got formatted address, I've got geometry. And what I want to do is just pick up the very first one, the first part of the array in results. So the first part, the index for the array is 0. So in between there, I want to say the 0 item. I may have 10, 20, depends on what I return. But the results is an array. So we can see the results there, and we can see the array start there. So in here, I've got the results, and I've got the array, and then I've got the item inside there, the field that I'm looking for, which is geometry. Now, geometry isn't an array. If we go and take a look, geometry isn't an array, it's just a dictionary consisting of location. So that's the next thing I need to pick up, is the location. And again, location isn't an array, it's just a dictionary of 2 items, lat and long. So if I go back to there, and inside there put location. So I'm now on location, and what I want to do is have this as the latitude. So that's just lat, and that is the route through to find that latitude value. It's quite straightforward. Let's just make that double quotes as well. It's quite complex, but it's something that you get used to, particularly this array. That is something that you need to really watch out for. So I've got the latitude. If I want the longitude, so I'm just going to copy that just to save myself some time, because it's pretty much the same place. And remember, I call mine lon. So I'm going to type lon, but as we dig down into here, it's called LNG for longitude. So it's roughly the same location, it's just longitude there. So now I've picked up the latitude and longitude for my address. What I need to do is now pick up the full viewport coordinates. So I want the northeast lat, northeast long, southwest lat, southwest long. I'm going to do that pretty much the same way. Let's just type it out. Geometry. Now, if we go back to the API console and we take a look at the bounding box, it gave us some hints as to what we should call our dictionary items. It's got max lat, max lon, min lat, min lon. I'm going to use those values in my program, in my dictionary, just to help me know what it is. So this one is going to be max lat. That's going to equal the result that I got back. Whoops. In the results, it would be a lot better if I learned how to type. In the first item, and again in the geometry section, but this time I don't want the location. So if we go back to the Google, I don't want the location, geometry location. I want geometry and viewport. Okay, so not location, I want viewport, then I can start talking to these values. So geometry, viewport, and when I'm in there I can now pick off what I'm looking for. Let's just scroll this down, make this a little easier to see. So I want the viewport, then I want northeast, that's my next layer. Northeast, and this is the latitude that I want. So I just need to put lat in there, stretch this so we can see. Lat, there we go. And that will find that value and place it in my dictionary as max lat. So, okay, I'm not going to keep typing that out, I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to have 4 of them. So there's my first one. This is normally where I make all my mistakes. I forget to change one of these values. There we go, I've got 4 of them. So I want max lon, min lat, and min lon. And I've got to change these, so I want the northeast. Now be careful here because it's not lon, it's LNG. Latitude and LNG. But this one this time is not the northeast, it's the southwest value that I'm interested in. So southwest. Southwest. There we go. Hopefully I have now pulled all the detail from the postcode or the address, and they're now stored in a single dictionary geometry with a latitude, a longitude, and the rectangle with a max latitude and longitude and a min lon, which we need for the bounding box. So let's save that and move on to the next part.